Um, yeah, that'd work. That'd work. Let's see. Well, let's start with your parents first, could we?
Oh, sure,
Okay.
sure.
Yeah, if you would just tell me about your parents, when they were born, their names, just more stuff about them that you know, stories like you talked about your dad being in the Mexican American War yesterday, and just stories you can tell us. Spanish American War.
Yeah.
Yeah, just tell us stories things you can tell us about him, stories and stuff.
Okay,
Well, his name was Charlie, right?
yeah.
And her name was, well, it was
What?
Myrtle, but that's not what
Ma-
she went by.
It was Martha.
Martha. Okay.
Martha Luetta.
Okay.
Yeah.
But she went by a different name, didn't she?
Luler.
Okay, Luler.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty. And he was Charles.
He was Charles Henry,
Charles Henry.
but Charlie is all anyone ever
Okay.
called him.
Do you know when they were born? You remember their birthdays?
Oh, we've got them.
Oh, okay.
That's not on yet, is it?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I don't remember I don't remember the birthdays.
Okay.
I should have got that out. Actually, my dad was born, I think, in 1883,
Mm-hmm.
I believe.
Okay.
My mother was born I know she was born in 1988, in April of 1988. We've got these dates written down, but I don't remember exactly what.
Another April baby. We got
Yeah,
a lot of
a
that.
lot of April. Yeah, it was full. And my dad was born somewhere in Arkansas, and my mother was born in Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And they met, and this is something I should have found out from my folks when they were still alive. I don't know why my dad, and how and why he got to Texas, but he met my mother down there.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time, he would have been about, I think he would have been 19 or 20. So she was how much younger? 5 years younger?
Mm-hmm.
So she would have been 14 or 15 when they first married. First met.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I don't remember much about what they said about those times, except my mother had uncles, two uncles, if I'm not mistaken, down there. One of them owned a lot of land. He had cattle, raised cattle and grain, and I think her dad was working for his brother,
Mm-hmm.
or her uncle. And my folks met there, and shortly after that, Pop went in the Army.
So your dad was 47 years old when you were born? 46, somewhere in through there?
Well, he would have been...
1883 to 1929?
Yeah, he was 45 or 6 years
45,
old.
46.
Yeah. And my mother was 39.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So that was, honey, you're what?
You're late. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, unexpected, yeah. Very much. No, and they met, and my dad went in the Army. He joined the Army down there, and this is one reason there was a little confusion about my dad's age. At that time, they wanted you to be 21 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and they would take a person just about any age as long as he said he was 21.
And this was what year?
This would have been in 1904.
Okay. So,
Yeah, 1904.
1883 to 1904, you'd have been 21. Or you think maybe that's just what he said in order to get in?
Yeah, that's what we don't know.
Okay.
Because I know he lied about his age, so I don't know if he was 1 year younger than his Army age showed, or 2 years.
Okay.
I think he was 2 years, but that's something I don't remember for
Okay.
sure. So that's why I say there are some discrepancies about my dad's age.
Okay,
But he went by his Army age,
okay,
and so that showed 23. And he joined the Army, and from there, I'm not sure where he went first, but I know that the stories that I remember him telling was, that I remember when I knew where he was, they were headed for the West Coast. They were on a train going across Wyoming, Utah, Nevada. They got to the top of Donner Summit, and the soldiers all unloaded there. And they marched and hiked the rest of the way to the San Francisco Bay.
wow.
And
From
they,
Donner Pass to San Francisco Bay?
right,
Wow.
yeah, they went by foot the rest of the way. And they wanted them in good condition because they were going to the Philippines. So they went to Angel.
It's kind of like what these kids are doing to me this week up in the Bighorn Mountains.
They're gonna,
Strap it back on me.
yeah, get you in good
To
condition.
make me grateful I have a truck.
There you are. Enjoy it when you get back to it. Yeah, so they went to San Francisco Bay and they boarded the ship there and went to the Philippines. And this was of course after the Spanish-American War and what they call the end of the Filipino insurrection.
Yeah.
So they fought what we call, today we call terrorists or something.
Right.
And they battled them over there for a couple of years. And when my dad, when that slowed down and they came back to Frisco Bay again, to Presidio, which is on the peninsula right outside San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And then that was in 1906, and Pop was there when the San Francisco earthquake occurred. And then they were on duty there and patrolled the streets and tried to keep peace and all that for a while. And then I'm not sure where my dad went from there. He was discharged in 1907. And I don't know where he was, if he was discharged at Presidio or if he went somewhere east to a base east of there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't really know. But anyway, he went back to Texas, and him and my mother were married there.
Hmm.
And then they went back to Arkansas,
Mm-hmm.
where they had both been born.
But he was still in the military then, is that right?
No, he was out when they got, he was discharged before they were born.
Oh, okay.
And I'm not sure where he was discharged though. And then he went down there, they were married, they went back to Arkansas. And then it's kind of sketchy. They worked, my dad would farm, or he would do sharecropping with someone, and that's when he got into photography. And when Rilla was a baby, she was born in 1908, he got a job working on a riverboat, taking pictures on it, and then he would work in little towns, taking pictures when they would.
So who's probably around Fort Smith then? If he was on the
Well,
riverboat?
all the way, they went all the way down to the Mississippi. I don't think they went on the Mississippi very
You'd almost
far.
have to be on the Arkansas River somewhere to do that.
Yeah, he was.
So Fort Smith maybe is where he lived?
Well, I don't know. I know the boats went from Fort Smith down
Right.
to the foot of the
Yeah.
Arkansas, where it hits Mississippi. I don't know where they lived, other than that, because they lived on the boat while they
Mhm.
were working. And then one time Rilla, they couldn't find Rilla one day. And I guess Mom must just went completely frantic.
Well, I'm sure she did.
And they looked and looked, they were afraid that she'd gone overboard. They finally found her somewhere on the boat. I don't remember how Mom said that.
Mm-hmm.
But they found her, and she was sound asleep in fine condition. And that's when Mom told my dad that that was all of the boat. She was gonna have to get off that and do something else.
Mm-hmm.
So they did. And they worked on farms again and so forth, and somehow they ended up going back to Texas. Her uncle said he'd give him work down there. They ended up down there. They went down in a covered wagon with a baby from somewhere in Arkansas to back to Texas. In a, like I say, in a covered wagon. And I don't know how long I don't know the years on these and how long they stayed anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, Pearl was born in Arkansas, Jeff was born in Arkansas, and Dude was born in Arkansas after they went to Texas and then back to Arkansas in a covered wagon.
Mm-hmm.
And from the recollections I have of what Mom and Pop told me, they just worked on farms here and there, and my dad worked on road work, building roads, where they'd be using teams to move dirt, rocks, etc. They told me several roads that he had worked on, and I don't really remember the names of any of them, or the towns. But then he ended up going to Oklahoma again and went down to a little town, I can't remember the name, I think it was Cabinet, no, I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
Some little town outside of McAllister to the coal mines. And he worked in that, and I guess from what him and Mom said, he really hated
Working in coal mines wouldn't be like Krebs or someplace like there? There's lots of coal mines in that area.
I believe that was it.
Krebs?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
that's it.
Yeah, that's a little Italian coal mining company.
Yeah, that's
Community.
okay, and that's where, okay, he worked in that and was very unhappy. Mom didn't like it, he didn't like it, and that's where Rilla met her first husband. And she was married there. And that's where her oldest daughter, Helen, was born.
Mm-hmm.
And then Mom and Pop left there and went up to Yukon, Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
And Pop worked there in a flour mill.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know how long or what years any of this was. Well, I know they were in the coal mine, and when Rilla was born, when Rilla's oldest daughter was born, and that was in 1927, in
Mhm.
April of 1927.
Another April baby.
Yeah. And then they left after she was a baby, and that's when they went, Mom and Pop went back up to, went up to around Yukon, and I think he went where his brother, his older brother was John Davis, my dad's older brother. And they worked together for a while out in, around Calumet and Gary.
Mm-hmm.
And then my dad and Mom moved to Yukon,
Mm-hmm.
and my dad worked in a flour mill there. And then it would have been in 1927 then, before I was born, there was a strike at the flour mills there, and there was a lot of bad feelings and people getting hurt, and they left and went to El Reno. And I really don't know what Pop did there at first. He took pictures, he did photography work everywhere he
Mhm.
went. And what other work he did, I just really don't know. But times were hard in those years, and then Pop went back in the Army in early 1928 when I was a baby, and he was at Fort Sill, or at Fort Reno, Oklahoma, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
He was at Fort Reno then, the remount post.
So he didn't work at Rock Island then, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, he didn't. And then that brings us up about when I said I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
at Fort Reno, when I grew up. Pop was in the service there, and Rilla, she came back when I was born. Rilla came back up to be there to help Mom and the family. And then while she was there, I guess her husband just wrote her a letter and told her, since you're there, why don't you stay there? I want a divorce or something like that.
Well, he was a real winner.
Yeah, he was a dandy. So that's the way she knew she was getting a divorce.
Wow.
So they were divorced, and so Rilla the whole family then, we all moved out to Fort Reno. And I was a baby and Helen was a baby. Rilla met a soldier out there, Charlie Bynum. And they went together for a while, and they were married. I'm not sure what year, but I think it was a year or so after we went there. She was probably married to Charlie Bynum in 1929. And Pearl met her husband, Miles Reynolds, was in the Army there. He was in quartermaster, which most everybody was on a remount post, or quartermaster people. Her and Miles got married, and I think Pearl was probably only 16 years old when she got married. And Miles was transferred right away to Panama. So she went to Panama, so we weren't around her any then until the late 30s they came back.
So they pretty well missed the Depression down there in Panama.
Yeah, they were in that
It
during.
actually probably worked out pretty good for them.
Pretty good. They came back, and in the 30s, then they went. Miles was sent to the Army War College in Washington D.C. And then when the war started, Miles was sent back. They went back to the Panama Canal, and he was there during the war. And Pearl and the kids, civilians, the wife and kids were all sent back to the United States. So she was back up in El Reno during the war. And Charlie and Bynum and Rilla ended up getting a divorce, and I'm not sure, probably 45 or 46. And Rilla was single for a long time then. Jeff went in the Army when he went, well, first he went into what they call the CMTC, Civilian Military Training Corps. Civilian Military Training Corps, that's correct. And he was in that, and he went in that when he was 16 or 17. And that was, they took their training, that was done at Fort Sill. Then when he was old enough.
Fort Sill down in Lawton?
At Lawton, Fort Sill, Oklahoma.
Okay.
Artillery.
Okay.
Okay, then he joined the Army and was in an artillery outfit in there. And that's where Jeff started boxing and fighting. He was, and he said one thing that was real good, you didn't have to stand all duty if you were in athletics. And he fought, and he ended up being a pretty good fighter. Then he came back. He got a transfer and came to back to Fort Reno, and that is where he met his wife. In about, I think he met her in 30. It would have been late 38 or very early 39. He met Peggy, and Peggy was in high school when he met her. So they.
So now Grandpa Jeff was born when now?
In 1918.
Oh, so okay, so he was 21. He was 21. And she okay.
He was in 30.